I lost my fiance in March of 2023 to a fatal fentanyl poisoning. I said, he told you that those have shit on them, which means they probably have fentanyl in them. And he was like, no, babe, we've been friends our whole lives. You wouldn't do that to me. Don't even trust your friends. You can't trust somebody you've known your whole life. He was a very caring and loving person, especially towards his son. He had a son that had just turned 17 5 days before his poisoning happened. We both had been through a lot in our lives. He had been an addict throughout his life. He had battled it since he was 21 years old. He had been sober 2 years when he relapsed, and the day he relapsed is the day he passed away. When we first got together, he told me about it. He had lost a parent as a young adult to a fatal methadone overdose. And that's where his addiction started. And he battled it his whole life up until the end. He was doing really good. He had no contact with the dealer, who had actually been one of his friends since he was in 4th grade. He hadn't had no contact. He had blocked his phone number. And recently, before his poisoning, Riley had gotten a new cell phone and new carrier, which unblocked all the phone numbers that had been blocked in the past. And his friend reached out, and they'd been talking, reading back through the messages. There was nothing ever said about drugs up until the day of Riley's poisoning. And the guy had asked Riley if he could borrow some video games, and Riley had recently stopped using medical marijuana and had a dab bong that the guy wanted. So we were taking that over there to him, and Riley had asked me for a ride to go over there. And so I took him over there, not putting 2 and 2 together till we were on our way over there, whose house it was we were going to. And once we get there, we get inside and I figure out why we're there. They had went in the other room to do the transaction. I sat in the living room, and I hear the guy tell him, be careful, there's shit on those. And when we get in the car, I asked him, I said, what did you buy? He told me he bought some Percocets. And I said, well, did you hear what he told you? I said, he told you that those have shit on them, which means they probably have fentanyl in them. And he was like, no, babe, we've been friends our whole lives. You wouldn't do that to me. I took him to his house and dropped him off, picked up a package that he had bought for my granddaughter, and gave him a kiss, told him I loved him. We were texting back and forth. We had talked about me going back over there to his house and staying the night that night. And I got my last text message from him at 8:30 that night. And at 8:45, his dad found him unresponsive on the floor in his bedroom. His dad texted me. I woke up to a text message. I had texted him and told him, I said, well, I guess either you fell asleep or I said something that upset you or something. I'll talk to you later. I love you. And then I got a text message at 12:30 that next morning telling me that he had passed away. And while he was laying there, about the time he was laying there dying on the floor, the gentleman was texting him, telling him how to break the pills down, to be safe with them, and to enjoy the euphoria of the pills that he had gotten. And then when Riley's dad messaged and told him that this was Riley Shane's dad and that Riley had passed away, the man started texting, freaking out. What did the cops find on him? Have they gotten his toxicology report back? Do you know what was in his system? Started blaming Riley for it. The dealer was freaking out pretty bad, wanting to know what they found on him, if they found any pills on him or anything like that. We got a half-ass investigation. IMSA never called TPD out, even though in my Emmy's report it talks about there was a blue powder substance on the dresser and a rolled-up bill. So they found what was on the dresser, and he was non-responsive in the floor. IMSA dropped the ball. They never called TPD out to the house, nor did they call him out to the hospital. I called him out 2 days later after Riley's ex-wife found the baggie that had the other 3 pills in it, and hidden in his dresser. So Riley's ex-wife found those. The next day, his dad calls me, and I told him, I said, okay, well, I'm coming over tonight, and we're going to call the cops. We're going to have an investigation done. And when the cop come out, he did it as a field investigation instead of a police report because he was receiving drugs versus connecting it to a overdose homicide that had happened 2 nights before, even though I explained everything to him. Well, then I get in contact with a detective that I knew was working a lot of the cases here in Oklahoma and in Tulsa. And I got the case started myself. Well, come to find out 6 months down the road that nothing was ever filed properly. There was never a police report filed properly. So on the 6-month mark, I had to go back and relive that whole day all over again, file a new police report, sit down with a new officer, do it all over again. And by that time, I was told that it had been too long, that the detectives weren't going to look at it. I actually had a detective tell me that he was a drug addict that chose to get high, so he chose to die. I tracked down everything. I did their whole job for them. Like, there was text messages in Riley's phone from the guy giving him a list of things that he had to offer, from Klonopin to blue Percocets. It even talks about in his phone that his guy come from Colorado and had just delivered a bunch of the blues to him. And I have that text message with a baggie of blue pills, and it's still, no, there's not enough evidence. Luckily, I didn't get criminal justice, but he got his own justice. He was found unresponsive in his own living room in January of this year. He's dead. When the guy's family announced that he was passed, one of the girls that Riley grew up with posted on there, sounds like karma for Riley Shane. Don't even trust your friends. You can't trust somebody you've known your whole life with your own life anymore. That man was taken from his son, his fiance, a little girl that was just fixing to turn 2 that he had decided to be her papa and step up and be her grandpa. He was taken from his ex-wife, who was one of his best friends, all because someone wanted $147 from him. Mentally, it's been hard. I am a recovering addict myself. I will have 19 years sober in October. And in 18 years, this has been the biggest challenge for me to stay sober. But I knew that if I relapsed, I would be taken away also. I actually am a child that comes from a home that both my parents were addicts. My dad was a meth cook. So I followed right down the same road. for a while. I've actually lost 3 people in the last year to it that I grew up with and was close to. 2 in Tulsa, and 1 was actually at a rehab in California. He had had a year sober, and a newcomer come in and handed him a THC vape. He hit the vape, and that was it. It's not like it was when I was a kid. You can't experiment. You can't play around. You can't try this and try that, because it's in everything, and it just takes one time. I lost Riley to a quarter of a pill. I travel with a group called Family Supporting Families. We go into junior highs and high schools and teach children the dangers of illicit drugs. We do a lot of public forums. We have a big courthouse rally every year where we bring posters of everyone's loved ones that have been passed away that have been added into our group, and we do everything we can to bring awareness to it. It's very rewarding, especially going into like the schools that I went to growing up, the high school that Riley went to growing up, speaking in schools where I know people's children that are there, to see the look of reality on their face when they see how many people are in our group that have actually lost someone. A lot of the schools, we line the whole gymnasium. We have so many pictures. I don't want to see anybody else's children hurt the way my stepson does or the way my granddaughter does. It's not fair. Or to see another woman go through what I've gone through. I finally had a Prince Charming. I finally had my good person, because I'd always been in bad relationships. And I finally had someone who treated me the way I needed to be treated. To have it ripped away by someone who was careless and didn't give a shit about his own friend.